Okay, let's talk about high dynamic range. So for those of you who didn't raise your hand in the beginning, what we're talking about is essentially seeing a wider range between the blackest blocks. Sometimes when you see an image, maybe it looks more dark gray. We're getting closer to real black, and on the other end, a real white. Now, most who have seen it are really excited about this opportunity. Some of the tricks that we're still working out is it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. There are different formats, different HDR formats, and we don't have standards yet, both for production formats and also for delivery, how to get it from the master to the home. One of the groups that's working on this right now is called the UHD Alliance, which is a consortium of studios as well as manufacturers. Technicolor and ARRI are both on that committee, and I believe they met this past week. So Glenn, maybe you could tell all of us a little more about what they're working on at the moment.
Sure. Well, basically this group is motivated by offering higher quality experience to the customer. Quite frankly, the early adoption of UHD, of 4K TVs, if you will, has been very slow because the consumer didn't see probably enough to rush out and buy a new TV set. But when you add HDR to it, you get higher contrast and a much more impactful and realistic picture. And it's kind of hard to describe just in words, but it just gives the picture a lot more emotional impact and realism, and it's something you can see 10 feet away from the TV set. You can see in the living room. You don't have to be up close, to see extra detail. It's really about extra contrast and realism, and so. For the manufacturers, for the studios, and there are 5 major studios in the consortium, it's about raising the bar for home video. The initial application will be movies that are distributed via Ultra Blu-ray, the next generation Blu-ray, which will be available this fall, or via streaming video with Netflix and Amazon and DirecTV also signing up to deliver. And so it'll be UHD with the higher contrast and the HDR capability. And so we're excited about that from a camera manufacturer perspective because we've been capturing all this extra dynamic range, but not able to display it before. Of course, experienced colorists knew how to work with it and squeeze it down so that you could fit it into the broadcast video pipeline or even the limitations of projected motion pictures. But now we can expand that, and so that's exciting.
And the ARRI cameras obviously can capture that, but Dave, do you want to talk a little bit about what Technicolor is working on in HDR, because you already have some services and work being done?
Yeah, we have a HDR initiative at Technicolor. In terms of processing right now, this is one of the questions we were talking about earlier with Oliver, is we're not sure if it's going to impact what's being done on set or how we're actually monitoring the image right now. One of the first shoots that we did, we shot it just as if we were shooting a film show and making sure that, we had great dynamic range. And then the process of HDR is actually an added deliverable in the process. So if you're doing a feature film and you have a digital cinema release that you're doing in one color space, you have a broadcast release that's in Rec 709, you would actually have another deliverable, which would be an HDR deliverable, which would have more dynamic range, more detail that you would bring out, and that would be done through your color correction pass and color science in the end.
The thing that I found really exciting about what you guys are doing is that even today, I see Madam Secretary and I walk into my brother and he has this new TV and it's so bright and I can't believe how it looks, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what do we do? And I go back and look, the master's great. There's so many steps between what we deliver as a producer, as our master, and what happens when it goes through cable and all this to people's homes. So the great thing about what these guys are doing is working with the consumer electronics companies who are producing these displays that are really amazing displays that you can look at, in the middle with bright sun and also in a dark room, and hopefully self-correcting, and then helping us know how to deliver so that when those files that we deliver as a master get shown on 15 or 20 different types of monitors in the home, big or small, they actually look at least close enough to what we intended so we don't have to have that, oh my gosh, feeling when we walk in. And it's a really important service that they're doing for us as producers. It's a lot of it behind the scenes that we don't actually see all the time, but it's really, really important.
Light levels are measured in a term called nits, and to give you an idea how broad a spectrum we're talking about, the consumer and professional displays that we're starting to see introduced can range anywhere from 200 nits to 4,000 nits. It's a big range. Gareth, I'd love, as a colorist, for you to talk about, first of all, what you think of HDR from where you sit, but also, are we looking at different versions that are going to be needed?
As a colorist, HDR is exciting because, again, you know, as a colorist, I'm trying to retain all the information, and right now in the world we live with standard HD is I have to do a lot of work just to retain highlights, retain lowlights. So HDR is exciting for me because I'll now be able to see that information without having to work to try and retain it. And trying to retain it, you know, whenever you're trying to manipulate an image, there is some degradation that's going on into the image. So the less manipulation you have, the truer the image is going to be. So HDR is just exciting that we will have displays that will show you blackest blacks, the shadow detail in between that and midtones, and the high end as well, things that we've never seen before that have just gotten clipped out and blown out, skies and stuff like that, that is actually retained in the camera, and now we'll actually be able to see it and enjoy an experience that looks more realistic than manipulated.
And versioning, will we need different brightness levels?
Yeah, I mean, in regular HD, it's you know, 400 to 4,000 nits, and so it's a darker image. So if you look at the two side by side, the HDR does look brighter than HD. So there will be at this point in time a process as far as doing two deliverables or two color passes. We'll say one for HD and one for HDR, and that's just how it is because HDR really is in its infancy stage as far as everything that we have to do. And everybody's still learning about it and how to achieve and get to the end result, and we'll get there probably pretty quickly.
Oliver, do you want to talk about HDR from the cinematographer standpoint?
Yeah, it's interesting. I haven't quite figured it out yet. I saw the monitors. I saw that screening that we had at the ASC. They had, I think, 6, 7, 8 different monitors there from all the different manufacturers, and they had the consumer type there, and they had the reference monitor there. So far, there isn't a lot of material that was actually produced for HDR that's trying to take advantage of it. It's pretty amazing. I mean, you look at some monitors and you feel like you're seeing sunlight. That was my sort of take on it. So it really jumps off the screen in a nice way. So it's interesting. I'm not sure yet where it's all going. And then again, is the standard. I know it's a huge thing for them to figure out, you know, for the monitors to be self-adjusting towards how bright the room is, because the environment changes it a lot. And that's been the problem. I mean, we have the problem right now. Even we do everything right, and you know, Gareth does my dailies right. Every once in a while I have to call him up and say, this was so damn bright on television, what happened? And then he goes, come to my suite and look at it. And it's the broadcast that comes in, and whatever buttons we push, it's not necessarily the same as it is over the iPad, the online streams. And we're having a very hard time and trying to get it to the place where we like it in the way that should be seen. Besides the fact that everybody has their monitor turned onto some sports motion blur kind of thing. So if anybody cares really of how the image looks like, which is questionable to begin with, but if we do care, then all of this is going in the right direction. And I think the next thing is ACES, what that's trying to do for it, you know, trying to standardize all of these deliverable items. And so we can generate them more easily, and not because it's kind of sounds ridiculous that we have to produce a HDR and this and an HD version, and how many versions we're gonna do? I mean, you at some point you're gonna say, hey, stop it there, you know? So,
That's true.
you know,
many,
we
yeah,
gotta
yeah.
find a way to get through this, I think.